I can't wait for you guys to see it here. You- hmm? If you're watching this, you probably already know what we're about to do. We're about to make a dress out of leftover fabric. Can we do it? Is it going to work? Is it going to flop? Is it going to be a hit or a miss? I don't know. Let's find out. Hi guys, welcome to today's video. I'm so excited to have you back here. This is our first tutorial. Do you have leftover fabric? Do you have pieces of fabric or like old scarves from maybe one Ankara dress that you did or another that like they are just laying around? You don't necessarily use them, you don't really need them, you don't really have much use for them. Well, or you just have leftover fabric, like it's too small to make a dress, it's too small to make a top, it's too small you feel to make anything concrete, anything serious. Well, this tutorial is for us. Like none of these pieces of fabric are up to half a yard, I don't think. Like they're just leftover pieces. I was going through my scraps and then I found that I had 3 different shades of nude. I thought they would be really good to make like something out of 3 of them together, and then this idea of the dress came to me and I just thought yes, so that's what we're going to be doing today. Let's get into this video. First step we're going to go into right now is the planning / sketching stage, where we just basically decide what we're doing. This is kind of like the ideas.
Basically, we're going to start out with a rough sketch of what we're about to do. So we're going to do like a flat drawing of the dress that we're going to make. So it's a basic round neck, don't judge my drawing, short sleeves, and the body is just straight. This is just a basic dress, also a short dress. This is what we have. This is what we're kind of going for. Now, we're going to also divide the body into 3 parts because of our 3 different colors, the 3 different colors that we're using. So here is where we have the darkest shade, this is the medium shade, and this is the lightest shade. It's going to be the upper body and the sleeves. Alright, so this is the easy part. Now we have like a rough idea of what we're going for. So the measurements that we would need: your bust measurement, you need your waist, you need your hips, and then you need the gown length. Okay, so for me, my bust measurement is 32, my waist is 26, my hips 40, and then my gown length is usually around somewhere between 40 and 44, depending on the length I'm going for. This time around, I think we can use 40. Now the thing about this dress is that because this is a basic dress, like this is not a fitted dress, I mean there's no part of this that is supposed to be fitted based on our design. So we're going to take our widest horizontal measurements, which is the hips for me. For someone else it could be their bust, for somebody else it could be their waist, but for me my hips are my widest horizontal measurement. So using my hips, I'm going to divide that. Okay, let's just see, we're going to use our hips to determine how wide this dress is going to be, and then for the gown length, that's how long this is going to be. Now the next thing that we're going to do is to kind of draw a rough sketch of what it's going to look like when we start cutting this dress. Now we're going to pretend that this is our fabric, right? This is our fabric. Now we folded this into 2, so this is where the fold is, right here on this line. This is where the fold is, so this is the open end. First thing we're going to do is to mark our neck. I'll explain that, the measurements for that, when we're actually cutting the fabric, but we'll mark the neck, and then the length that we need. Let's say this is the length that we need, let's just say is the perfect length. Then we have the sleeves. We're not going to, there's no seam at this area. The sleeves are kind of attached to the body, so there's no need for that joining we usually see on most clothes. So we're letting our sleeves just be attached to the rest of the body. So you're going to have something like this, and then this is basically the shape that we're going to come out with for the full dress. And then we have a little bit of a slant here at the shoulder area. So this is it, your neck, whole length and everything. Now because we are joining different fabrics in this dress, because we're going to have a seam here and a seam here to join the different fabrics that we're using. This is not going to be completely like straightforward like that, but don't worry, it's not going to be complicated. Now my gown length is 40, so the length from here to here is supposed to be 40 inches. I'm using inches, by the way, so it's supposed to be 40 inches. But you have to take note that whenever you're sewing, you are also taking note of the fact that whenever you join fabric, you lose a bit of length, so you always have to put some allowance so that when you join the fabric, it doesn't get too small. So since this length is supposed to be 40 on me, and then we also need to join them here and here, we can add an inch for this seam here and then an inch for this seam here, and then also we add another inch or an inch and a half for our hemming and our joining at this point. I hope you're following. So instead of just marking this to be 40 now, we're going to have to add an inch here, an inch here, an inch for our hemming allowance. Normally for hemming allowance, some people use an inch, some people use an inch and a half. I think I'm just going to go with 1 inch. That should be fine to hem and then to join at this point. So when we add those 3 inches, that's going to give us 43 inches for the full length. Now we're going to divide that 43 inches, because remember, this is not just one piece of fabric. We're working with 3 different pieces of different fabric here. We have to divide our 43 into 3 equal parts, except you want a situation where maybe one of your pieces is smaller than the others, or maybe the upper one is the biggest and then like it reduces as it goes. But I kind of want them to be as equal as possible. It would give us 14 inches. Like, you can't perfectly divide 43 by 3, so we're going to get 14 inches and we still have an extra 1 inch left. So what we're going to do is make each of these different segments of our dress 14 inches long, but we can't just throw away this 1 inch. So in this case, I think the best thing to do, we'll just add half an inch instead to each of them. That will give us an inch and a half, but it's fine. If it turns out too long, we can just trim a little bit from one of them or from all 3 of them. So that means on each segment we have a length of 14.5 inches. Now for our width, I said I was going to use my hip measurements because my hip measurement is my widest horizontal measurement. So my hip measurement is 40 inches. As you can see, this is only half. This shape that we've gotten right now is only half of the front of the dress. This only makes up for half, and this is only half of the front of the dress, and it's only a quarter of the full dress, because you have 2 pieces. You have the front, you have the back. Those are 2 pieces, but when you divide them into 2 again, you have 4 pieces. I hope this is clear. We're only dealing with a quarter of our dress right now, so that's why we're going to divide our horizontal measurements, which is 40 inches, by 4. And when you divide that by 4, you have 10 inches. Now I'm not going to use my perfect hip measurements because I don't want this dress to be fitted around my hip area. I want it to be free, like all the way down. I just want it to be a loose dress. So I'm going to add 4 inches to my hip measurements, which should be enough allowance, 1, and also it's a perfect division of 4. So that, like, I don't like having all these something point something like that. I just like having perfect numbers. So that will give us 11. That means when we're cutting from this point right here to this point, we're going to have 11 inches. So 11 inches wide and 14.5 inches per segment. Now that's for this point, all these areas right here. At this point where we have our sleeves, right? To make this easier, you can just like do a big rectangle where you have your 11 inches wide and then 14 inches per segment. But then come here and just add, for me, I'm just going to add like 5 or 6 inches to the sleeve length, like 5 or 6 inches outside of our 11 inches here. And then for the wideness of the sleeves are not fitted as well. So for me, when I want wide sleeves, I just usually go with 10 inches for this point right here. So this point is going to be 10 inches. This area right here is just going to be 5 inches. So that's 5 inches out, 10 inches this way. It makes a nice rectangle, and I think we're done.
Alright guys, so because we've used from this fabric before to sew something else, some of the ends are not even, and like we can't easily cut what we need from here with all these irregularities around. So I'm just going to take my pair of scissors and I'm just going to cut.
Just be sure to be very careful, especially if you're using from some fabric that you have used before. Just make sure you keep it as even and as straight as possible. You don't want to, this is already, like, the fabric is already not much, so you don't want to waste it. You want to make the most out of these pieces that we have. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just trimming up all the rough edges from our fabric before we can proceed to actually start cutting. I'm going to do this for the three pieces, the three different fabrics that we're using, because they are all in similar condition. So we're done with this one. It's basically just a big rectangle now, a really wide rectangle. It's folded. On to the next. This one, there's not really a problem with it. It's just this little piece right here. Just need to snip it off. And then this one. Okay. We have this area right here. So we'll straighten it out.
Alright guys, so if you remember our plan correctly, you remember that I said we are going to use the lightest shade for this part, the medium shade for this part, and then the darkest shade for this part. So this is what we're going to use here. This is what's going to be in the middle, and then this is going to be at the bottom of the dress. So we're going to start with this one. Alright guys, so starting with the lightest fabric, we're going to first, for me, I have this really wide rectangle piece, and like I'm going to try to get the front and the back from this, and I really hope that this is enough fabric to do what we need. So first I folded it into two, which gives us two sides, like folding it in half, and we have this part which is meant to be the front or the back, and like we basically have the front and the back facing each other. If your fabric has a wrong side and a right side, when you're doing this, you want to make sure you're letting the wrong side of the fabric be on the outside, because that's where you're going to be doing your marking. I folded it into two, and then now I'm going to fold it again. Remember when we did the sketch, I talked about dividing the measurements into 4. So that's because we are folding our fabric in 4. So now that we folded it into 4, on the closed edge, don't do this on the open edge, on the closed edge right here, that's where we're going to be making our markings and our measurements and all of that. So I'm trying to fold it as evenly as possible. I had to film this part again, so I'm just going to explain everything, don't worry about that. So now we folded it all. This here is our closed edge, and for this part you're going to need your tailor's chalk and your measuring tape. First thing I like to do is to mark the neck. So the wideness, the width of the neck, I think I would like to go for just an average neck, which is 4 inches. For the neck, you can always play around with your measurements. It depends on how wide you want it, how deep you want it. For the depth of the back, I usually use either an inch or an inch and a half for just your regular necks if you're not going for anything dramatic. So that's this marking here. And then for the front, I'm going for 4.5, which should just basically a regular round neck. So I've drawn the curve right here for the back, and then the same and then a lower one for the front. I'm just retracing them. Like I said, you can always play around with your neck measurements, try to experiment, see what works for you, because different body types, sometimes this 4.5 inches now for me, that is like basically an average round neck, might be too tight for someone else or too big for someone else. So you just have to see what works best for you. And then also, if like drawing all these curves is not really your thing, like if it's, you find it a bit of a challenge, you find it to be a bit of a challenge, you can always buy French curves. I don't have a set, but you can buy it. It just helps you when you have to draw curved lines. It makes them smoother. The next thing we're going to do now is, if you remember our sketch right here, we need 11 inches for the width. That is across here. We're going to need 11 inches, and for the length, remember the length we decided for each color should be 14.5 inches. So right now I'm going to check and make sure that we have at least up to that for this piece. Let's see, 14.5 inches in length. All right, yes, we have more than that. We have way more than that, so that's fine. And then 11 inches for the width. Yes, we have more than that. Now for the width, I see that we have like just like 14.75 inches, which is fine. Like we wanted 15 inches to add for the sleeves, but we can work with this. And also, one more thing, we're going to add an inch. Like it's supposed to be 11 inches, but we're going to add an inch for sewing allowance, because by the time we join the front and the back on this edge here, and like it's going to take in a bit, like at least an inch, and that would reduce the size of the dress, so we don't want any problem. So we're just going to add an inch here. So that means we're going to make this part 12 inches, and we're just going to use the width of the fabric that I have here. Like whatever we have left from the 12 inches is what we'll add for the sleeve, because remember we said we wanted it to be 5 inches, but we don't have up to that. So we're just going to work with what we have and see how this dress turns out at the end. Okay, so I'm going to mark out the 12 inches right now. That's what I'm doing. It helps if you mark it at different points so that you can join the points together and join it into a straight line. This is what I mean. Just mark it all the way down. Remember that our length is supposed to be 14.5. We are going to measure that right now and trim off the excess. Okay, now for our sleeve, I mentioned when we were drawing that we were going to use 10 inches as the width of the sleeve, and then we're going to make the shoulder area a bit slanted, because your shoulders are not just straight and angular like that. There's a bit of a slope, so that's what we're going to do.
So some people go with like maybe an inch for the slope of the shoulder, and I'm going for an inch and a half. Okay, an inch and a quarter, just so not too much. I don't know, just do you know, just slant it. It's much better if you use the ruler. Like, I don't know, I'm just not into the ruler today. And then we're going to do our 10 inches for the width of the sleeves. It looks a bit wide right now, but don't worry, we're still going to take in some sewing allowance and all that.
And then as you can see, it's starting to look like our sketch. Do you see a resemblance? Or before we cut it out, let's like measure out everything. So we'll just cut everything out. Now for this piece, I have more of like a big square, and we need to get the most out of this little fabric. It's just a big square, and I need a front and back piece, so I'm trying to see how best to fold it to get the most out of it. So if we fold it this way, like if we make it, if this is our horizontal axis or whatever you want to call it, are we going to get 14.5 here? Because you remember our 14.5 for the length of each color. Okay, we have exactly 14.5. Like, guys, this is a miracle. All right, so this is what we're doing. We have our front piece and we have our back piece. I'm just going to fold it over again so that we can measure everything and cut it up, and yeah. Okay, so another measurement we need to clarify is that we have 11 inches, actually 12. Remember, we're adding an inch for sewing allowance, so let's see. Okay, yes, we have that. We have more than 11 inches, so I'm just going to pull it back a bit. I don't know, I like to conserve fabric. I've been called a hoarder, but it won't stop me. Okay, so we'll see if we have our 12. We still have a little bit more than 12. I don't know, I just want to fold it just so we have like almost just enough, almost exactly what we need. I'm just marking our 12 inches right now. Okay, so now I'm going to cut this part. So this is our width and this is our length. I'm going to cut here too because it's supposed to be open. Our last piece. So for this one, just like the top piece, we have a long rectangle and we're just going to fold that into 4 as well. Make it as even as possible. As even as possible. You want your front and your back pieces to be the same. Yes, like our measurements, we need 14.5 inches of length and then 12 inches of width. So this is the moment of truth. Yeah, we don't have 14. Okay, that's exactly 14.5, like on the dot 14.5. A miracle. I don't know, it's just a miracle. And then 12 inches. Yep, we have more than 12 inches. So yeah, so we're just going to mark our 12. Right now I'm just going to cut this first piece. Remember we measured for the back neck and the front neck, so now we're just going to follow the line for the back and cut this part out. And then finally we're going to cut the neck for the front. So we can take out this part because this is what we're going to use as the back. So we take out that part, the one that was inside, and then now that we have just one, we can cut out the neck. We can follow the line that we need for the front neck. And that is basically what it is, you guys, for the cutting. So you kind of have an outline of what the dress is supposed to. So this is kind of what the dress is supposed to look like. Then I'm going to start by joining the individual pieces together first before joining the front and the back. So we'll join the layers first. Alright guys, I just wanted to show you what our dress looks like right now. I have joined up the seams at these points, and this is the front because you can see that the neck is deeper. One tip that I would like to drop at this point is, if you're sewing clothes, it's really nice for you to, it really helps the appearance of the clothes for you to iron. I'm going to join the front and the back pieces together. I'm going to join them at the shoulder and then at the sleeves and the side, just like that. I'm going to join them together and come back and show you guys. So our dress is almost done. We just have to get on with the finishing touches. I'm going to hem the bottom. I'm also going to hem the sleeves as well. And for the neck, I'm going to use a bias tape to finish up the neck area. Okay, so guys, this is what a bias tape looks like. It usually comes in rows like this. When you're using a bias tape, it's folded like this. So now this is the front of the neck. When we use it, I know it's not the same color with the dress, don't focus on that, okay? So when we use it, it's going to end up being on the inside, it's not going to show on the outside. And you simply place it here, you open up one of the ends, you place it on the front, on the outside of your dress or whatever it is you want it to be, the part that you don't want it to show, you place it there first and you open it up. You sew along this line here all the way around, and then after that you close it back up, and then you move it in, and then you sew here to hold it in place. So to finish the neck, you can either use the bias tape method, which I'm going to use for this dress, or you can actually do a facing on the neck. I'm going to show you that in another tutorial, but for today we're just going for something really basic, and we're going to use the bias tape. Let's go. Also, I came
outside so that my sister can help me, so I can show you guys how this dress actually looks. I'm really excited and I love the outcome. It's just like a really casual dress.
This is our dress. This is our dress, you guys. Ignore the dog in the background, but I just really love it. So that's the video for today. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you're still watching to this point, thank you. If you liked this video, please let me know by dropping a like or a comment. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Was this video helpful? Do you have any questions? Just let me know, or you can hit me up on my Instagram right here. Thank you guys.